Alright, so I'm going to talk about mentoring developers a little bit. I am a really big proponent of mentoring in programming because I really feel that, tech is not a skill that you go and can really learn from a book. It's a craft. It's something that you really have to work at. Sometimes when I talk to people and say, programming is a craft, they're like, no. Craft should have some kind of an intrinsic value to them. No, that's art. Art needs intrinsic value to make it art. Crafts need to be something that you are proud of making. The craftsman is in love with his medium, but he believes that the form and the function needs to be balanced with it actually being useful. So what is mentorship in general? Mentorship, of course, is taking someone with a lot of raw potential, good things that they can do, and you're going to turn them into something useful, right? Something that can win wars for you or something that can program awesome things. Your definition of useful may vary, and this is why being a mentor is so important. When you take that person, you have the power to turn them into something for good or something for evil. So what is mentorship? There are a lot of definitions of mentorship over the years of what I've been doing with programming, what I've been doing with people around me, and also being involved in some mentorship organizations. These are kind of the ways that mentorship is defined. So a mentorship is either very formal or very informal. Formal ones tend to be within organizations or within jobs. You are sitting down, this is your new person who is employed, you have to pair program with them. That's a very formal mentorship. Whereas you have somebody you talk to over IRC who asks you questions every other week. That's a very informal mentorship. And there's everything along the span. This is not really one or the other, but they tend to be in these two. A mentorship can be a very professional mentorship, where you are just having a relationship that is solely focused on what you're trying to learn. Or you can have a personal relationship where you're talking one-on-one with each other. The mentorship can be very long-term or very short-term, or it can stop and start, depending on when you come back as a ghost. And then mentorships don't always have to be one-on-one. They usually are, but you can also have group mentorships, which tend to be of a more formal variety. So why would people bother to do any kind of mentorship? What are you going to gain from this? What would people learn from this? Well, first let's talk about having a mentor. What do you get when you have a mentor? First of all, you're going to get lots and lots of information, far better than finding it for yourself. Technology moves at an enormous pace, and there's no way any one person can keep up. If you have lots of people that you know that are mentors for you, they can help point out the things that you need to know, the new things coming, the things that are coming up. You also get role modeling out of a mentor. Usually, some of the first people you go to mentor, you actually kind of hero worship a lot. At least I did at first. Then you get to know them and some of that goes away, but you still look at them as, I want to be that someday. You get good advice from them, right? Nobody can really work well on their own. You really need to talk to other people and get some of that feedback from each other. And finally, one of the ones that I think is almost the most important part of mentorship, especially in a programming community, is the networking experience you get from this. As Jennifer talked about in her talk yesterday at the beginning, a lot is luck. A lot of luck comes from who you know. And one of the best ways to increase that circle, to increase your pool of I might get lucky, is to have a really good network and have really good mentors who can help push you to where you need to be. And finally, this is a really intrinsic value. This is interaction. Humans are social animals, even the ones with a little bit of Asperger's syndrome who tend to be programmers. You still need to interact with other people. You have that difficulty, sitting alone in your room every day will drive you mad. So these are some really good reasons of why you would want to be mentored. One of the questions I get a lot from a lot of people though is, well, I understand why I would want a mentor, but why is it important for me also to be a mentor? Learning. You can sometimes learn more from the people you mentor than you actually would learn from being mentored by someone else. Sometimes the things you learn can absolutely surprise you. Another reason is recognition. Everything your apprentice does, from building a Death Star to building some great project, is going to reflect back on you. Again, it's networking. You may be absolutely surprised by who your person can introduce you to, how they can make your circle grow in ways you never appreciated. Another reason is reciprocation. A lot of people who have been mentored want to give that back. And it makes you feel good as an individual to give that back. And of course, there are just all the intangibles of teaching and helping someone to become better. Every human likes to do things that make them feel good in some way or another. All right, we talked about what mentoring is in general, what mentorship can give you. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do mentoring in a successful manner. Because like a lot of software projects failed, a lot of mentorships fail as well. The first problem, of course, is finding a partner. And this is bad in any relationship. This is always the hardest part of the deal. How to find the right person, how to find the right thing. This is a lot like dating. You have to have a personality match, you have to have the skills match, and you have to have some kind of chemistry available between them. You might have somebody who looks like they'd be a great match on paper and they get to know each other and they just rub each other the wrong way. You don't want to try and force a mentorship in that case. The other big thing is you need to have not only that personality, that chemistry, the skills that you want to match up, the same availability and time. If somebody lives halfway around the world, it's going to be very difficult to have any kind of a mentorship going on. Not impossible, but difficult. And they need to have the same kinds of drive for what they want to get out of this. So after you did the hard part, you did the dating, you found your mentorship partner, next you kind of need to decide on the goals for where you need to go. And this is where a lot of ones fall through. You go, you make friends, you think, oh, this would be great to be a mentor with them, and it just kind of stops there. Unless there's some kind of drive pushing you forward, some goal you're shooting for, you're not going to get ahead. This is the same for any kind of situation. If you just sit and leave things where you are, you're not going to move ahead. So even if you don't put it on paper, sit down and have a conversation. Decide, what do we want to get from this relationship? Why are we doing this? Oh, I want to learn about, this new testing system that you've been working with. I know you're really great at it. Or you can sit down, I want to learn a new language. I know you're really great. You've been working in Python and I haven't done a lot in it. Sit down, have that conversation, decide where you want to go. The other thing is goals are going to evolve and change, so don't do really huge, long goals. I want you to teach me how to be the best PHP developer ever is a really, really bad goal. So you have your relationship and you're having your goals for how you want to have this relationship happen. Next, you need to communicate. And this is always the hard part, right? You actually have to put in the time to have some sort of an interaction with each other. I hear an awful lot that people are too busy to do things. And that's not a truth. You are never too busy for the things that are important to you. You will make the time. You will beg, borrow, or steal the time from something else. You will forego doing a shower because you have something important that's coming up. You just make time for it. So if you're not going to take the time to put in the time to have a good relationship, mentorship isn't going to be anything useful for you. You're only going to get out what you put in. The other thing is I hear a lot, especially from people in organizations and in companies, that, well, isn't it really hard to do any kind of mentorship if you're like remote and in different places? That's baloney. I've been mentoring somebody for 6 years now, and I've actually never met him in person because he lives in Scotland, and I don't get over to Scotland much. There are enough good tools that you can have a great mentorship, a great relationship. Use the technology tools available. Now, I won't say that a relationship could be made better if you do have that face-to-face contact. I'm never going to claim, oh, the internet is always good enough. It often is good to have those face-to-face relationships. One of the ways I do supplement it with my own stuff that I do in mentoring is conferences and things like that. You meet up with the people every 3 to 6 months, depending on what you do, and you have those face-to-face conversations. And finally, you need to remember to have some kind of an exit strategy. Not every relationship is going to go well. This applies to all relationships that you're in, and mentoring is a personal relationship. You need to decide, well, I've learned a lot of what I can from you in this area. Maybe we need to change the goals and go in a different direction. Or maybe instead of you mentoring me, I need to mentor you on something new I've learned. Maybe we just need to end this. We've kind of learned everything we can from each other. Sometimes you need to run away screaming, especially when they start calling your house at night or other creepy things happen. It's a good idea not only to have a way out in your mind for when things end, but to also have some kind of an intermediary who can step in. This might be an organization, this might just be a friend of both of you who knows we have this mentorship going. If things go wrong, it's somebody to talk to, somebody to mediate. Because remember, all the time, people change, and the relationship you have today might not be the relationship you have tomorrow. Today it's the little kid in the toy shop, and the next one, it's the one who's giving you children. Also remember, it takes two people for any relationship. Once one of them has gone over the deep end and tries to force choke you, usually the relationship is over. So here's some general rules I usually use when I go into any kind of a mentorship relationship. As an apprentice, you got to take responsibility for your own career goals. You can't go up to somebody and say, tell me what I want to do when I grow up. It doesn't work that way. You need to listen and share with each other. You need to incorporate any feedback given. You can't just sit there and go la 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 and expect to get anything out of it. If they tell you something, try it. Even if you think it's the stupidest thing ever, you may be really surprised by the outcome. You need to make that time. You need to beg, borrow, or steal that time for interaction. You can't come back every single day, oh, I have something come up, oh, I have something come up. Make it a priority. Finally, you need to have realistic expectations. You as a brand new programmer can't come in talking to this really skilled programmer expect to be the best C guru ever in 3 months. Really. Make sure your expectations are honest. A mentor has the same kind of rules in place. You need to trust and respect the person. You can't really think in your mind, oh my God, it's the noob. Okay? You have to trust that they are going to listen to what you say and put it into practice. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered to come to you and try and build this mentorship. You need to listen to them. You can't just push all your views and opinions. You're not going to get anything out of the relationship yourself that way. Help them define and achieve goals, but again, don't tell them what they want to be when they grow up. Offer a lot of advice and references and resources and constructive feedback. Notice that I didn't say constructive criticism, because constructive criticism is a lie. You need to give them feedback. You don't say, you did this wrong because of this. You say, here's how you can make it right. That can set the entire tone of a relationship. Also, don't try and grab them all the time. You want them to fail. You want them to get both arms and both legs cut off, because then they get in this nice suit and they're really powerful again. Sometimes it is good to fail. You can become better in the process. Sometimes the failure is not just on one side, it's on both sides. You can have a mismatch in expectations and personality. If you have breaches of trust in a relationship, that can be very bad. And you can have a lack of focus. And as I said before, remember, failure is good. One of the big reasons that I do this talk, that I really got into mentorship in general, is because of my own experiences in the open source community. So this part of the talk is a little bit personal. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a beginning developer. I had never gone to school for development. I had just picked it up on the side for fun. And these were the two people in my life that made it very possible for me to do what I do today. Person up here is Josh Eichhorn. He's my younger brother by about 18 months. And this is my dad, Lou Eichhorn. And both of them are programmers. So way back a long time ago, you could run a cable modem in your basement and run a Linux server on it and have a great website. You know, when DHTML was the new thing and I made pretty roses float on my websites for fun. So I asked my dad, I was really into anime in college, and I said, I want to put an anime website up. And he's like, sure, I'll run my cable box with this modem. He's a programmer. It was no big deal for him to set it up. And then I said, oh, I want a forum. He's like, okay, I'll put this new PHP thing on the box for you. It'll be really cool. I've never heard of that, but okay. So he put it on, and he said, just go out and look online, and there are lots of stuff you can download that's written in PHP. So I put one on and tried to run it, and it didn't work. What I didn't know at the time is he had just put the new PHP 4 beta on, and the script I had was written entirely for PHP 3 and blew up everywhere. And so I went to my brother, who had been doing PHP since 3 started, and I said, can you help me with this? And in typical brotherly fashion, he said, no, do it yourself. This was actually a good thing. This was making me fail. This was making me do it by myself. And in the end, I learned to be a great programmer from that. But there's a second half to this story. I started programming, getting involved in communities, using all these open source applications. I tried to go help make them better. And I got involved with the pair group, and I started working on some stuff with my brother for them. And he had this release that he really wanted to do, and I was working on a big new feature. And of course he's like, well, quick, just throw it in. We'll just release it. I'm like, it's not ready. It's not done. I'm telling you. He's like, no, just, it's okay. Go ahead and ship it. So we shipped it. And of course, the new stuff I'd done was horribly, totally broken. It was my fault, yes. His too as well. Don't make me put it before it's ready. And that really would have been the end of it, except the next day I got a really, really nasty email. It's probably only one of 2 or 3 that I've gotten in my lifetime as a programmer. But basically it was bashing me for I didn't know how to do anything. I was a stupid girl. Girls shouldn't be in computing. Girls shouldn't be programming. What are you doing here? You're wasting everybody's time. Don't get involved in open source. And I was crying, and I called my brother up, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And he said, no, stop. You're awesome. There are trolls in the community. There are people who like this who are going to put you down. They know nothing. You are awesome. And so I stayed. And we did a release that day, and it fixed every problem, and everything was fine. But if I hadn't had this support, if I hadn't had these people in my life, I would not be standing here as a programmer. So, there's some expectations when you're at this very beginning level. These people I had in my life. There's a different way you treat somebody who's new to programming, who's new to everything. You need to try and make everybody find it on their own first. You can't spoon feed anybody. You can send them a link to a website where they might read about it. But if you just give them every single answer, they're never going to learn how to learn on their own. And they need to learn how to learn on their own. Let them ask questions, let them ask lots of questions, but don't ever ask the same question, okay? If they answer you once, please write that down, put it somewhere. Don't ask it again and again. Don't be afraid to question why, but you need to be open to the answers, even if you don't like them. And you are going to be pushed outside your comfort zone as a beginning developer. These are a couple more people in the PHP community. This is Wes Furlong and Sarah Goldman. If you don't know who they are, go look in the PHP core credits sometime. They're responsible for a good chunk of things, including all the streams layer and all kinds of stuff. Wes is pretty awesome, and so is Sarah. So I got involved in PHP GTK, just writing docs, playing with it, doing some fun stuff, and some of it was broken, and so I filed a bug, and I said, Andre, this is broken, and Andre, just like my brother, said, fix it yourself. Like, well, I've never written any C, and he's like, I don't care. Fix it yourself. So I sat down and started teaching myself C, and along the way I went to these 2 people, and I said, I'm having a problem here, and I know my questions at the beginning were absolutely stupid questions. I'd never taken computer science in high school, or in college, or anything like that. My programming was all self-taught. And they sat down, and they were very, helped me answer my questions. Of course, I was very careful not to ask the same stupid question twice, but they did answer them, and they had a lot of patience for a beginning programmer. When I went to my first conference, Wes was standing there. I had been feeding him lots of patches, and I said, I have another patch for you, and he said, And he took his laptop, and he sat it down, and he logged in, and he gave me Karma and access to the PHP source code. But I had already had this previous relationship with him, right? He already knew what I was capable of, and he was willing to say, here, just commit it. You know what you're doing now. So when you're an intermediate apprentice, when you're starting to really get into the groove and learning new things and getting ahead, you need to branch out beyond what you think you need to know. They knew I needed to learn C, even if I was scared to death of it. You need to have faith that they're going to answer the question, okay? You don't need to be afraid to say, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. What is the difference between a signed and an unsigned int? I've never run into this before. They sat down and answered the question and didn't make fun of me. Okay, continue to reach out in new directions, meet new people. And remember that it's okay if it takes you like 2 hours to figure out what the issue is. Why is this seg faulting? Oh, I used an int instead of a long. That's really bad. And then things move on. And there are some people up here even in this room. This is Lorna Jane Mitchell, Lagaya Tamal, Eli White, Matthew Werfinney, and Elizabeth Naramore. And these are some of the people in the PHP community, only a sampling of them, that have become my mentors on a day-to-day basis. By the time you're an advanced developer, you will find that your pool of people who you consider, these are my mentors, has gotten really big. But you'll find that they each know a specific thing that you're really interested in. I like doing lots of things with Elizabeth Naramore because she's the reason I'm giving this talk in the first place. I was talking to her and I'm like, you know, I'm giving lots of talks, but I'd like to kind of expand the kinds of talks I give. And she's like, you need to give a soft talk. So this is my soft talk.
I love soft talk.
Yes. And I talk to Eli when I talk about a lot of scaling. He worked at Dig. He knows how to scale stuff to the ends of the earth. I talk to Matthew when I want to talk about well-crafted software. And I talk to Lagaya and to Lorna Jane about all kinds of things. So about the time you're an advanced apprentice, as I said, your pool of people you consider mentors gets really big. You need to have respect for them, but you get to the point where you realize you finally start getting over some of that imposter syndrome because you have all these people who are giving you feedback at a constant basis. This is one of the ways I get around that imposter syndrome problem, where I get around the fact that, oh, I don't feel like I can do anything. If I start feeling like that, I have all these people in the community I can reach out to and say, can you give me some honest feedback on this? And they're like, yeah, you're fine. Listen, you just did this. It's absolutely awesome. Everybody feels like this at some point. I had issues with it last week. I had a big conversation with Lorna Jane 2 or 3 days ago about this. You know, the circle of people you are around can help keep you from losing your way. You also need to realize that sometimes real life gets in the way. I had a friend who we were doing mentoring and they went and had a baby. And babies, as you know, are lots and lots of work. They like fell off the face of the earth for 3 or 4 months. But I was kind of expecting that. And it's not like I'm going to go pound on his door, you have to make time for me and for mentorship. Well, this is real life, and sometimes real life takes priority. So the other thing I did is I started giving back what I've been given, because I felt so blessed by the things I got from the open source community. It's probably going to take me a lifetime to pay it back. And one of the ways I did that was by starting and getting my own people coming in. Oh, you want to learn how to do core internals? I can help with that. And so this is Michael McLean. He's now a core committer to PHP and has a couple extensions he's written on his own, plus he helps me with my stuff. And I've been working with him for almost 6 years. This is a guy I've never met in person. He lives in Scotland. He's a great guy. But he is the most advanced of the people I'm still mentoring. And he needs probably the least amount of work as a mentor. The more advanced they are, the less you have to help out. Okay, they need support and encouragement. They need feedback loops for coding improvements still, because nobody's ever a perfect coder. You always need extra sets of eyes. This is why it's great to have open source that you're working on the side, even if it's just a small little library. It keeps your skills up. The other thing is, it's great to have somebody to listen to. You know, he could sit down and complain the other day because OpenCV just changed their entire API and totally ruined the extension needed. And I was like, yo, chill, this happens. Put a note in it right now in your documentation that it only works for this part. You can fix it when you have time. It's okay. And it's also nice because you still need to pull them out of their comfort zone. Everybody has this point where they like to get in and sit down. And having these mentors, having these people you mentor, you can pull them out and help them along. This is my friend Bob. Bob is an interesting character. Bob has come down to my basement and sat and coded in the basement with my cat on his lap for like an hour. 24 hours, actually. That was the PHP throwdown long, long ago. So, this would be my Anakin. He's a really nice guy, but he's an intermediate developer. And when he started, he was one of those guys who had never worked with any other developers. He worked in a one-man shop. He had had little experience of that kind of thing. And it's taken me a lot of work, but pulled him out, learned new things. I think it took me 4 months to convince him that object-oriented programming was not of the devil. And now he preaches the word. So my job is done. An intermediate dev has very different needs from an advanced dev. You need to stretch them a lot more. You know, with an advanced dev, you can be like, oh, maybe you need to learn something else. Learn this C++ stuff. You can just mention it in passing. This is cool. Maybe you should look at this. With your intermediate devs, they're not as used to stepping outside of their comfort zone. You need to push them a little bit more. You need to network, connect them to other people. I made him start going to the user group in his area. You have a user group in your area. Why aren't you going there? And now he speaks there and is active there, and it's great. In addition, you know, just being a positive role model for them is a good thing. Never stop learning. And finally, a beginning developer. I'm mentoring my son Patrick. He's right there. You can see him up there, over there. I generally try to only have one beginning developer that I mentor at any one time. Beginning developers are a big investment. Big investment. But you know what? They have the best payoff. Mike was a beginning dev. Bob was a beginning dev for me. These people have done awesome things because I took the time to make them better. So, we're starting very young now. A beginning developer needs a lot different things. They're going to need a lot more attention. They're going to need a lot more of your time. I might have 2 or 3 people in the advanced, well, lots in the advanced, or 2 or 3 in the intermediate, but as a rule, I only have one beginning apprentice for a very good reason. They take time. You need to teach them best practices. They need a lot more positive feedback. You're going to have to give them lots of resources and teach them how to find their own resources and teach them how to learn. But never spoon feed them. Never just give them the answers over and over. Then they're going to become dependent on you. That's not to say you tell them to go read the frickin' manual every time. Especially if the manual is really, really bad or doesn't exist at all. Yes. So, sometimes you just need to take the time and teach them how to learn so you don't have to spoon feed them, while at the same time, you need to be able to give them the resources they do need to get ahead. I have one more story to tell that actually came out of this talk. I wrote this talk originally for Lone Star PHP, when was that? A while ago this year, June? And I went down and I gave the talk and I had an excellent reception from the group. And afterwards everybody came up to me and said, well, is there some kind of mentoring program in the community? Now we do have a mentorship program, a very informal one with PHP women. And I have been involved in that and had a couple people I was mentoring in that. But there was no formal organization of any kind, with any kind of structure or resources to help. And I said, well, not really, but a lot of the ways I help with the people I mentor is on IRC. So I started a PHP channel, PHP mentoring on IRC, on Freenode. And in one day we had 45 people in the room. Holy cow, what's going on? And then somebody else came in, oh, this is a great idea, let's set up a website. I'll buy the domain. Domain bought. Somebody else came in, oh, we should do a website for this. We could set up some kind of, WordPress or something. I'm like, that's a lot of work. We need to keep this as low maintenance as possible. Let's just set up a GitHub site. They will host our site for free, right? So we set up a GitHub organization for it. People helped set up the site. All summer, my son Patrick worked on doing the HTML for it, getting the information in. It was just being the right person in the right place at the right time. So now we do have the PHP mentoring organization. And all it is it's, as I jokingly call it, the PHP dating service.
That's something else.
It's there to match people up for mentorships. The other thing we're kind of working on is trying to find a little more formalization for it, but it has a lot of resources now in the organization on GitHubs for best practices for SQL and JavaScript and PHP and all the things that people need to know. Both as resources for people who want to come do mentorships, for people who want to mentor, where's some resources that I can throw them at, a central repository for all that kind of information. There are exercises that are there. There's a website to come to the IRC channel and talk. We can generally help you match you up with somebody. The dating service, as we call it. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm always on IRC all the time. Or you can get me via email or my website. These are the two currently that I know of, official groups that have mentoring organizations in the PHP community. I'm sure there are others. I would love to hear about them if you know of any, even in the open source community at large. If there's other languages or libraries or anything that have some kind of, structured organization for this. I would like to make mentoring and mentorships become something that happens for everybody in the community. I would love to build strong PHP devs. I would love to have a dev come in and sit down in front of me and I say, do you know what Register Global is? And they look at you and say, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But they're not going to learn that unless they have someone teach it to them. And they're not going to learn it in college. Good practices and that kind of thing aren't learned out of a book. Finally, I have a big list of resources. These slides are already up on SlideShare at Aurora EOS Rose. That's my account there, because I've given this talk a couple times. But these are all the resources that I used for going through the types of mentorships and that kind of thing. All right, do I have any questions, comments? Yes?
I think it's interesting too on your PHP mentoring site. There are opportunities for things other than just writing code.
Yes.
So, for instance, I'm mentoring a couple people on writing, technical writing, and things like that. And so, there are. If you feel like your skills are in other areas, that it's more than welcome there. I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of people come to me and are like, I'm not good enough to mentor anybody. Like, oh, you have no idea. Okay? Do you actually know how to use prepared statements in SQL? I'm sorry, that puts you a whole step above 90% of the PHP developer population. You are ready to mentor somebody. No matter how little you know, you have something to teach. And you can get a lot from that relationship, so don't be scared off. If you know how to write really good documentation, man, people will swarm you. How do I do that? That is a very hard skill to learn, to do. If you know how to do really cool podcasts, heck, people would be like, how do I do this? Because that's a hard skill to learn as well. It's not just limited to things primary in the programming community. As Elizabeth said, the writing and the docs and anything connected to it. Anything else?
About mentoring, it's pretty true. Online stuff actually helps
Yes.
a lot. And sometimes it's just that even I don't know. We at Mozilla use IRC quite a bit, so it's all text. And sometimes there's no emotions. There's no emotions. There's no actual facial expressions to look at when you're talking, and a completely innocent text sentence could be taken completely out of context.
Yeah.
So
especially his, because he's a very I'm dead serious, because he's a very vulgar person. So you read his text and you're like, my gosh, this guy's a total jerk. But you know that, and you know that he's smiling the whole time and he's joking around.
It's usually there are smileys on IRC too. If you
Right. Well,
but it can get misrepresented.
Well, that's why a lot of times if you have things like that, you see something start to blow up, one of the things you can do is say, hey, stop. Let's go to a Google Hangout. Let's look at each other and talk face to face for a couple minutes. Because I think we're having some miscommunication here. You have to kind of nip that in the bud right away.
One thing that hasn't been mentioned is people approaching other people to be a mentor. Never say, oh, I don't want to approach, Elizabeth to be a mentor because she's so busy. She's not going to want to mentor me. She just did this whole presentation, and I'm probably a beginner anyway, so she doesn't want to mentor me at all. I have to say, I tweeted this, one of my proudest moments was when Leslie Hawthorne came to me and said, let's talk about mentoring. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about mentoring. And she's like, so could you mentor me? And I'm like, I don't think I can mentor you. What do I have to teach you? And I mean, I was like, wait, you want me to mentor you?
Yes.
And yeah, and the answer is yes. And we had, a good conversation. She wanted something specific. She wanted, some specific advice about where she was in her career and stuff like that. And and I was like, wow. So never think that someone is too busy for you, and never think that you know what I mean, that it's an imposition to ask. Because just like when you ask your friends for help, that's what they're for, right? Other people in the community, I won't say they're for helping you, but I mean, we're all in open source because we want to help do something.
Yeah.
You know, we want to help. That's why we're here. So whether we're helping people or a project, you know, the worst that you could do is say no, right? I mean, well, the worst would be that they flame you or whatever, but that's more of a reflection on them than on you.
Yeah. Yeah?
Oh, well, I was going to say, I like feeling smart, and I do when people ask me to tell them what to do. So I'm pretty into that. But,
How rarely does that happen?
But one of the things that, well, I guess there's two things I'd say. There's some things when there's a clear sort of site that helps you say, yeah, I'm willing to help people out.
Mm-hmm.
That helps a lot. There's some stuff that I think I can be helpful with, and I really like helping people with different kinds of stuff that I would tend to kind of throw out there, but I'm trying to do it in a way that doesn't seem douchey. Because I wonder about how to do it where, okay, I'm extremely cynical about people, like, okay, there's a difference between kind of the mentoring we're talking about and like life coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly cynical about the idea of like having somebody who just tells you what to do because you can't figure it out for yourself because you're just kind of a weak person. And that really bothers me like on a fundamental level. And I really don't want to seem like that. And I sort of don't want to like post to my blog. It's like, hey, you know, I know a lot about this stuff, and it's like maybe if you got any questions, like it came about podcasting. I've done a fair bit of audio engineering in my time, and I do a podcast,
Yes.
and I would be happy to answer people's questions about that. I mean, that would be a good kind of thing, but I don't know how to even kind of put that out there without.
That's kind of why we did the whole
Yeah,
site and the
right.
organization.
Well, you can do something like start doing presentations called, I don't know, getting started with a podcast.
Yeah.
Which
Blog post.
I actually have a presentation on that. And then
Right,
people get to
yeah.
know you as someone who knows about podcasts. Because the problem is, if you're not known as someone who does that, I could walk up to you and be like, hey, I know tons of Python. You should come to me because I know tons of Python. You have no way of knowing, like, and I don't know tons of Python. Like, I could just be saying it. You know what I mean? So you really kind of have to kind of prove it. And blogging is one way to do it. Speaking, presenting, any kind of stuff that gets your name. Having a podcast, for example.
Yeah.
Right, so pulling people in rather than sort of pushing out, like pulling
Yeah.
them in and drawing them to you.
So I was thinking like a good blog might be, well, this is how we do our stuff.
Yes.
Right.
And just
Yeah.
like-
I want to hear that.
And it probably wouldn't even be a blog. It'll be a series. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
If
You
you're
could even say that, you know, hey, if anybody needs
Yeah,
help,
that makes sense.
you know, right in the context of a blog post,
Yep.
that's not usually helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, other people might say, oh, hey, look, when you're doing it like this, here's a better approach.
Right.
Oh yeah,
So you
because
can end up
I
being
surely don't, you know, there's plenty of things I can learn, so yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that you can do also is forget what you were going to say. Apparently.
You don't need a mentor for that. He'll tell you what to say.
Yeah.
I can teach you what to predict, whatever.
Stumbling on your words over there, forgetting what you want to say over here. So, yeah, I mean, learn by doing, present, blog, and you can tell people, look, this is what I do, and you can do sound clips too of like your before and after and things like that. But,
Right, yeah.
That would be awesome.
Mentoring is more about, I know what I was going to say. Mentoring is about people more coming to you too. So you could get involved with something like PHP Women that has people seeking mentors. I know that LOPSA, which is a League of Professional System Administrators, has a mentorship program. So every now and then, there's an email across the list saying there's a mentor who applied and he wants mentorship with this kind of thing. And then there's the flip side of the question that you were talking about with like life coaching and all that kind of stuff. The flip side is you sometimes get mentors who are basically coming to you and basically saying, I don't know how to do this, do my homework for me. When their homework might be their job, right? So.
Right, yeah.
I had a mentor at Adopt Me,
Was that right?
so I didn't even know about the PHP mentoring thing. And you guys know Jacques Woodcock?
Yes.
So Jacques comes over to my house one day and he's like, so we're just gonna be like,
Did you know him at the
Oh,
time?
Thanks though. you're
If there was one more session, I'd probably take
halfway
you
through,
on
he
that.
says,
No,
"So by the way,
we want
I'm my
to-
mentor now."
Oh, is that right?
And I was
But you're gonna
like,
have to
what?
wait
What
like
do you
20
mean?
minutes to be super.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
making you as my
that's
mentor.
Hired.
He likes to tell people that that I am the best mentor he's ever had because I don't ever tell him anything. Which forces him to have to look it up himself.
That's the homework.
Yeah, that's right. It's all part of my plan.
That's scary. There's no like breathing apparatus in his future, is there?
Here, read the manual.
Yes. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.